Let's Talk Evolution, the podcast where real life experience meets the complexities of today's tech industry. Each episode, we dive into a specific topic with thought leaders who know the systems, the structures, and the nuances that drive the industry. This series is all about exploring the inner workings of tech and learning from the people who understand it best. I'm Danelle from Evolution Recruitment Solutions, and today I am your host. In this episode, we're looking at one of the most dynamic and closely watched shifts in finance and technology, which is the rise of Web3 and what it means for risk, regulation, and the future of compliance. As digital assets continue to evolve, so do frameworks that govern them, creating both challenges and opportunities for financial institutions and innovators alike. Joining us today is David Han, Vice President at Hydra X, a Singapore-based fintech company driving innovation in digital asset trading and financial infrastructure. David's experience spans multiple functions from risk, compliance to cybersecurity and even audit, giving him a unique perspective on how organizations can stay secure and compliant while navigating the rapidly changing world of Web3. David, welcome to the show. Before we get started, could you share a quick introduction about yourself and your journey at Hydra X?
Sure, thanks, Daniela. I'm David Han from Hydra X Private Limited. So my role here is as VP of Risk. My background is I started off in a MNC based in China doing tech-related service management. Then I came back to Singapore with the Big Four, Ernst& Young, in IT audit and IT advisory. After that, moved to Standard Chartered Bank with group internal audit. Then moved on to operational risk. After that, I finally landed now where I am in Hydra X doing risk management in general. So covering tech operational risk, some compliance here and there, third-party vendor management, and of course, the actual auditing of stuff, and cybersecurity.
Great. Thanks for your introduction, David. So let's just jump into the first question. So as you mentioned, you've been part of various functional roles in Hydra X, in addition to risk. You're also involved in area of compliance, like you said, third-party vendor management, audit, cybersecurity. So what excites you most about the regulatory side of crypto right now?
Well, that's a very good question. Crypto, it's been growing, more and more popular. Like BTC, ETH, all those are very commonly known terms in the market today. So all that has been undergone lots of regulatory scrutiny for the last few years, especially in the recent few years, right? More regulations coming up. So the exciting part is how is the governments across all the countries, right, going to start setting in a more permanent kind of framework to actually regulate this aspect of crypto that is much closer to traditional finance going forward. There's a lot of AML topics that's all on crypto. There have been many issues of people trying to use crypto to launder money, to do scams, etc. So that's the most exciting part now, I would say, of crypto, in how to manage it so that it becomes a regulated financial instrument and maybe bring forth a new wave of digital finance to the future.
Okay. Yeah. So, how do you see these regulatory environments across Southeast Asia shaping the growth of blockchain and digital assets?
Okay. In terms of blockchain and digital assets, I would say Hong Kong, Singapore, they are the leading few countries in this area. Regulations has been passed out. I believe Hong Kong also recently is trying to encourage the growth of crypto locally through their licenses and all. The other aspects in the Southeast Asia, like Indonesia, Vietnam, they're also starting to pick up this trend, issuing various types of crypto-related licenses to encourage growth. So I would say the growth aspect of this is huge now in Southeast Asia. So it is something definitely worth looking out for in terms of career opportunities, even investment opportunities, I would say, is something you can consider if that's up to your risk appetite.
Okay, and just for kind of personal interest, I think we do place quite a lot of compliance guys around more Web3 and Web2, right? Do you think Singapore is a bit more open to kind of issuing like licenses like DPT now? Because the last time I checked was maybe like 10 to 12 companies that only had it. Do you think now they're a bit more open to that, or?
Yeah, now I would think government is trying to encourage growth in this area, but of course, if in a regulated approach. I believe now the DPT license is under the PSA license, under the MAS regime. So there have been multiple companies who have attempted to apply for this license. You can see that on the MES website. So this is gaining popularity. So I would say that this is definitely a growing space. It's definitely something, from the compliance perspective, it's worth watching because I believe the regulations here will only evolve and be more fine-tuned in the coming few years.
Okay, yeah, good to know. I think quite a lot of companies are aiming for their license, right? Right. So
Yes,
we move on to
definitely.
our third question, right? And that is having made the move from Web 2 to Web 3, I think what has been the biggest learning curve for you personally?
Okay, switching from Web 2 Web 3 is definitely picking up the technology. Yeah, coming from traditional finance, the tech behind that, it's different from what Web 3 is fundamentally. But also, I mean, not just the technology aspect, also how do you apply what works in a traditional finance world as a Web 2 in the Web 3. Not everything is a one-for-one port over. The principle may be possible to be ported over, but how do you really apply it down to the day-to-day workings? That is something that we need to learn on ongoing basis to see how we readapt goods, for example, cybersecurity principles over to the Web3 front. How you do AML screening over to the Web3 front. I believe all those by which there's still much more room to be able to grow and mature in the aspect of Web3.
Okay. So it wasn't too hard for you to move across of it, basically.
I would say yes and no, because reason being, okay, end of the day, it's certain aspect of it is rather technical. So with a tech background, it's somewhat easier to pick up. Being also coming from the banking background, certain principles from traditional finance was pretty clear to map over. Certain things needed a bit more time to think, to re-digest, to see how it's better fit in the Web3 space.
So if someone's trying to move from Web 2 to Web 3, what is kind of one advice or one area you would tell them to guess focus a bit more on like learning before making that jump?
Be clear and be familiar in terms of the principles of what you're trying to do. Understand the gist of it. How you actually do it, you have to keep an open mind because certain things are not a direct one-to-one match. You will need to find what is the equivalent in the Web3 space and how to then apply that principle to achieve the same outcome.
Okay, right. And that brings us, I guess, to our last question, right? And in today's market, I think roles are evolving quickly. How do you think leaders and teams in risk and compliance can stay flexible while still meeting the regulatory demands?
I would say for compliance and risk teams, I think it's quite my personal view. It'd be good to have a good mix of people from the traditional finance world and also some in the digital finance world. Principles from the digital finance world are a good reference point, by which then for those for those in the team that are in the digital finance, it's a good way to have this good balance between both, so they can share the ideas. And I would expect the leaders to be able to build a cohesive and a good friendly exchange environment for these two different groups to work together. One, sharing the principles, the outcome of why such regulations or compliance rules are in place, by which then those who are in the Web3 space say, oh, okay, but this is not exactly available in the Web3 space. However, we have this. Would this work? Would this fit? And cohesively work together in this manner to then, help the risk and compliance function to not just tackle the issues in the Web2, but also then be able to move into the Web3 space with lesser friction.
Okay, right. So thanks for sharing. I think we have a little bit of time. So normally when we do have time, I do kind of ask a little bit more of like, I guess, recent updates or recent trends that are happening now. So from a compliance or risk standpoint, I think, is there any new regulations that people should be looking out for? I think the last time I spoke to someone of your level, they did tell me a little bit more about how, people with no license in exchange have to move out of Singapore, right? Is there anything new in the last couple of months that people should be interested in or should know?
I would say, okay, the most recent and new regulatory guideline that was issued by MES, it's about AI, right? About Gen AI, how some of the headlines are writing that now going forward, there'll be more regulation to better govern the use of AI in the space. I would say that is something worth looking at, especially for organizations who are looking at using AI as part of day-to-day work or even offer business services to end users and our customers today, because those would be pretty good guidelines to follow. In terms of implementation, maybe a bit challenging on some points, but I would say it's a good overall framework in the regulatory space that is new and upcoming, given NVIDIA's price is still very high, right? So I mean, that would be something worth the time to read and to understand. Yeah, that in terms of globally, I mean, maybe in the Southeast Asia region, I mean, some other countries are also looking and starting to release various versions of what might be handling in terms of DPT, digital payment tokens, digital exchanges. I believe there's one or two other countries have updated their requirements. So those will be areas to look out so that you can preempt your team internally in terms of how to better manage potential upcoming regulatory changes.
Got it. All right. Yeah. So thank you so much for sharing. I think that's a wrap for this episode of Let's Talk Evolution. A huge thank you to you, David, for sharing your insights on how regulation, technology, and innovation intersects in this fast-moving world of Web3. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to stay tuned and leave us a comment and share this with your network. We've got more conversations coming your way with people shaping tech from the inside out. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Danielle from Evolution Recruitment Solutions, and I'll see you next time on Let's Talk Evolution.
Thank you.